Today it brings me great privilege to join each of you as we remember 75 of our own. 43 years ago today, when this great tragedy took place, our community, our town, our campus was forever changed. We, as a university and a city, are defined by our history. And this is the single most important piece of that history, which is why we gather together this afternoon. The families that join us today to remember their parents, children, brothers, and sisters are here with us today as components of that history, as we not only honor them, but we regard with great respect their stories about how something of such great magnitude has not only played such a major role in that individual's life, but made this town and this school who we are today. As I reflect on the events which took place 43 years ago, I realize that we as a community and a university have a story unlike any other. What makes this story so special is that it continues to be written every year as we gather in this plaza and by this fountain. It is our job as fellow sons and daughters of Marshall, as well as loved ones of those who were taken from us, to continue to write the story and to honor these individuals each and every day. As a Huntington native and a proud son of Marshall, I strive to live and act with the same courage as our 1970 football team and staff, as well as the other outstanding members of our community alongside them on that day. I strive to act with the strength and dedication of the young thundering herd who continued to defy the odds and not only honored those who stepped on the field before them, but the community that supported and relied on them. That, my friends, is how we honor these men and women. We follow in the footsteps of our history, our past, and continue to rise as a university, as we have for 43 years. Most importantly, we remain true to our university and true to our community and its values by being the best sons and daughters of Marshall that we can be, always keeping in mind the victims and their families who have defined these principles and who carried them on today. Because as a town, as a school, and as a family, we are Marshall, and we will never forget. Thank you all.
Choosing to remember the devastation of November 14, 1970 continues to serve as a fundamental tradition to every year on this day, at this time, in this very place, to come together as one and remember. We also choose to remember and honor the family members and close friends of those who perished on that dark day 43 years ago, those who are still with us today. These are the members of our Marshall family who have had to carry on since that fateful day. Carry on without their teammates, their friends, their son, daughter, brother, sister, mother, father. We've come so far and accomplished so much since the crash. As sons and daughters of Chief Justice John Marshall, we all share the realization that although we're remembering an event that occurred 43 years ago, time has not diminished its significance, nor will the next 43 years to come diminish its significance. For we choose to remember and honor the lives of everyone involved. Everywhere I go and the places I'm privileged to travel in the name of Marshall University, I have the opportunity of meeting people who were directly impacted by the crash. And in each and every case, the events of November 14, 1970 are as significant to them today as they were 43 years ago. So we press on, and we reach for new heights as a university, as a community, and as a town. And as we move forward together, let us continually remember and honor those who have come before us.
I would like to pass along apologies from Mike Hamrick, Doc Holliday, and the football team for not being present at this event this afternoon. The decision to play the game at Tulsa tonight was one that was not in our control, and often these times it was dictated by TV. However, in honor of the victims this evening, the football team will be wearing the number 75 on the side of their helmets in front of a national television audience. This is such an important day in Marshall athletics history. It is a time to reflect on the lives that were lost, and it is also a time to understand on how this event is a common thread that bonds us all together. The sacrifice that these individuals made is why we will never forget our history and who we are today. This is a bond that is not only felt in athletics, but throughout Marshall University and the Huntington community. It is a bond that is represented by that fountain. That monument not only represents the sacrifice of those individuals, but also what that sacrifice means to everybody here today. It represents so much that I would like to present to you two recent events that took place that are examples of the wide range of emotions it instills in individuals. About 2.5 weeks ago, a prospective donor was on campus. He had not been on campus in over 30 years. A member of our Big Green staff was giving him a campus tour and showing him everything that has changed. And when they got to the fountain, that individual stood there, motionless, and cried. On the other side of the spectrum, about 6 weeks ago, hundreds of students from almost every student organization on campus stood around this monument for an introduction and a celebration of the purpose of each of these groups' activities. That event was called the Unity Walk, and it was sponsored by the Center for African American Students. On this day, I find it so fitting that the Unity Walk took place at this fountain, because all of us here today are unified by that tragic event. Now, 43 years later, this monument not only serves as a remembrance of the lives that were lost, but it can also stand for the greatness that it brings people today, representing a bond that brings people from different backgrounds closer together, unifying individuals. Once again, it reminds us of our history and who we are today.
Today, we commemorate an event, a tragic event, that occurred 43 years ago. And it was truly a defining moment for our university, for our community, and everyone, near and far, who was touched by the lives lost, the 75 lives lost in the plane crash. I say it's a defining moment because the temptation when you're so devastated is to lay down and quit, to give up, because the pain and the sadness is so severe. And we could have done that as individuals, as a community, all people far and wide. But we didn't. We chose to pick up the pieces, both individually and collectively, and find a way to not only go on with our lives, but to rise and elevate this university and our community to levels most people thought were not possible. We have shown ourselves to be a community and a people of great resiliency, great courage, and great conviction about who we are and what we represent. I'd like to share a special welcome to our members of our Marshall Thundering Herd football team, coaches, staff, everyone out in Tulsa right now, and tell you just how much you mean to us, especially when you take the field tonight. Today is the first day, the first time that our team has been away on this day. In that sense, 43 years later, we stand in awe of what has happened and what has followed, and the great strength that we have shown as a people and as a community. And it gives me great pride to celebrate that and also commemorate it. Today we remember, as has been said, and I would hazard to say many of us, if not most of us, in our lives thus far have lost one or more loved ones at some point. And we all know from that experience the wound that opens and leaves an emptiness in our hearts and souls that endures. But through remembering, we find peace and solace. We're reminded of the power of love, hope, family, and community, and what it means to us. And in remembering, we rejoice in the resiliency of the human spirit and our ability to triumph over tragedy and adversity, no matter how severe or how catastrophic. In remembering, too, we are reminded about how precious life truly is, how precious our time on this earth really is. And in remembering, we affirm the meaning of our lives and loved ones. And in so doing, discover the courage to raise our heads and our spirits to go on, to renew and rededicate ourselves to making our time on this earth count. Life is too fleeting to do otherwise.
I think for those of you who actually know me, you're probably as shocked as I am that I'm up here giving a keynote speech today. I truly don't remember anything from November 14th, 1970. I was 5 years old. And in its own way, the brain is a wonderful thing. It has the ability to filter out those things you don't need to remember or suffer through. And I can only imagine what the folks, especially like my sister Kim, and Jim, and my sister Patricia, who were all old enough to have truly known my parents and our aunts and uncles, at least we called them aunts and uncles, my parents' friends, and those members of the community who lost all of their good friends and supporters. I was lucky enough. I don't say that because I want everybody to feel like, oh, poor John. I truly believe I'm a blessed human being. Not only for not remembering, but for the fact that, like everyone's talked about here, we all truly appreciate the honor that this ceremony gives our parents. And as I look around at all the people here, I see the folks that suffered through that night 43 years ago. But I see just, I'm guessing 1,500 to 2,000 people between the ages of 18 to 25. And my daughter is one of those now. My daughter goes to Marshall now, and that's a special thing for me. Marshall was a part of our family long before this. My grandmother, my father's mother, lived in Old Main 100 years ago and got her teaching degree from Marshall. My father graduated from Marshall. All my siblings either attended or graduated from Marshall. My sister Patricia is now the director of the Simon Perry School of Constitutional Democracy at Marshall. What I want people to realize is so important about this ceremony, because about once every 4 or 5 years I get a call from somebody in student government, or I'll run into a member of the press and they'll bring up, Do you think it's important that we continue to do this every year? That Marshall continues to have this ceremony? Do you think it might be better if we did it once every 5 years or once every 10 years? I don't believe that's true, because as we move forward, I think the important thing to take from this ceremony while honoring those we lost is that, just like my life, where I'm truly blessed is I was raised by a community. I was raised by Huntington, West Virginia, and by Marshall University. My parents had created enough goodwill and made enough friends that the people in this community, and I believe that anyone you speak to, that any of the children that survived this, will tell you that this community took us in, and they made sure that we were doing the right things. And it was a unique experience, kind of like a university experience, because it gave us all a unique perspective on life. We had wealthy parents. We had folks who were working class parents, Republicans, Democrats, Presbyterians, everything. And it gives us all a unique perspective, just like a university is supposed to do. And so what I want the younger people to think about is where Marshall's come from since then. And take from this to remember that even though we come to remember the tragedy that happened 43 years ago, this community, this college was able to rise and to step forward. Because life's hard. Anyone my age, older and older, know that you're going to take it on the chin at some point. But what's important is how you recover from that. And you have to get the lesson from that you need to be able to swallow your pride and lean on others and look to the community, look to your family for support to help you. And you can rise above it. And you can come back and be even stronger and better than you were before that tragedy. I mean, Marshall has doubled or tripled in size, and you look around at all the new buildings and the new investment and the wonderful endowment, the graduate programs, everything. Huntington is experiencing economic rebirth because it's bonded with Marshall. And they lean on one another. And so that's what I hope, that as we move forward, while it is very important that we remember what happened, it's also important that we take the lesson. The young folks who are here today, I can't thank you enough for coming and taking time out of your day. But please take from this, if you get anything from it, that no matter what happens to you in life, if you're willing to lean on one another and work together, that you can overcome anything and you can be stronger and better for it. Thank you.
Stuart Spence Cottrell. Joe Lee Hood. James Thomas Howard, Jr.